Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about a science fiction action movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger called Total Recall. And joining me today to help me dissect this movie is Zombie Blues author, Time Warriors author, Owen Quinn. How are you?
Knackered.
Okay.
Knackered.
Were you
Joe
at
was telling
were
me
you at
I was
another
good.
were you at another rave?
No, I found a picture of me in the rave. I look quite happy in my wee 80s hat. No, I was editing
Oh,
again, no, to get it finished. And I swear to God, I was up. I didn't sleep very much last night because by the time we got it all done, I was on a buzz. My head was going.
yeah.
So I was quite excited, but I hadn't had the energy. So I ended up tossing and turning, watching Bigfoot documentaries and Golden Girls all night. I was like,
Nice.
oh my God, it's a nightmare.
That's
So
worth.
finally it's done, but now I just have to finish the other stories, write the other stories, I should say.
Right. What were you editing?
When Angels Burn and other
Nice.
stories.
When can we expect that?
Um, Hopefully Christmas. I'd like it
Oh,
before, but things keep getting in the way, like work and normal jobs and bills and stuff like
that
that.
that kind of bullshit.
That sort of freaking thing that keeps me away from my life on a yacht.
Well, listen, if it's out Christmas, it can be your Christmas present to me.
Yeah, right, okay. Buy it, you miserable shit. I've sent you some, by the way.
Yes, yes, I will get round to
Yes,
that. I will get
I
round
have
to that.
sent you samples of my wares.
And I really look forward to because I haven't read that of yours, so I'm looking forward to it.
That's right. Well, actually, I don't think everybody knows. We've known each other roughly for about 12 years and only really spoke this year. It was all over Facebook and likes and comments and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I think we've
From
met. I think we've met in person just the once.
Yeah, it was Arcade Con
I think,
in Baldbridge, Dublin. Was
yeah,
it Baldbridge?
I think it was. It was a
Um,
long time ago.
that's a long time ago,
Is Arcade
12
Con?
years.
Is Arcade Con still going?
No, it's over. It's over now. It's stopped.
All right. When did it stop?
God, see, I keep getting things mixed up with COVID, and that has to be 8 years.
Wow.
And the last person I met at it was Robert Picardo,
Oh, very
I
cool.
think. And then I met him again last year in Dublin,
Yeah.
Dublin Comic Con, but it was Robert Picardo, and I can't remember who else was there. I know I've met Yanto Jones from Torchwood at Arcade Con. Your woman that was in Farscape, there was the blue alien,
You just you
Virginia
just
Hay.
you just keep talking there for 10 seconds. I have a switch I forgot to hit, so you just keep going.
And then there was Simon Fisher Baker, who was Dorian in Doctor Who and sadly died a couple of months ago. Absolutely one of the loveliest people
All
I've
right.
ever met in my life. And sadly, he passed away
Who's this? Sorry.
like a month. Simon Fisher Baker, he was in the Matt Smith 11th Doctor era as Dorian
Yeah.
in an episode of Good Man Goes to War.
Oh.
And then got his head chopped off and came back again as the head in a box.
Ooh.
And used the immortal line Doctor Who.
Mm.
He's in all the pairs, but a great person and a lovely celebrity to talk to.
Very cool.
Mm,
Right. So I got the cast list up here for Total Recall.
there's a
Marcel.
coincidence.
There isn't that a coincidence?
Most because I can't remember half the names, but there you go. Very well researched on this podcast there.
So we got again another Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. We got Arnold Schwarzenegger as Douglas Quaid. We got Sharon Stone as Laurie Quaid. The great Michael Ironside as Richter. See you at the
All
party, Richter.
praise Michael. All praise Michael.
Oh, he's just so good whatever he's in,
Yeah, because he just has that look about him.
and
He
he's
just
such an intimidating villain.
he is. He's
Yeah,
very not intimidating in real life, but in a funny way because he's always taking the piss out of people.
yeah,
When I met him last year. Was it last year? I think it was last year. Um, his words to me were "let the cripple through." I thought I just could die and go to heaven right now.
Oh, no way.
Michael Ironside called me a cripple. I'm so happy.
They could have used you on Starship Troopers.
Oh, we were gonna. I would actually suggested that, but we'll never get around. No, doing that because they had the giant arachnid alien model, and I suggested, but there wasn't time to fit it in. They never got around to it.
Oh,
It would have
man.
been perfect, like perfect. But
And
there you go.
another great actor who's really, really good at playing a villain, we have Ronnie Cox.
Oh, the big good old Ronnie. He seemed to be in everything at that point in time,
Yeah.
even though he'd been around for years. But he was like every time you look around, RoboCop, Star Trek, and Next Generation, and they've just released an action figure of him from Star Trek: The Next Generation, Captain Jericho.
Yeah. And we have Rachel Ticotin, is that how you pronounce it? As
Tickerton,
Melina.
Melina,
And your man from Breaking Bad, Dean Norris, as Tony, the mutant.
and from Under the Dome. I like Dean Morris. He's very good no matter what he goes into.
Yeah.
He's just one of those character actors. He's a bit like Colin Meaney. You can put him in anything and he's good in it.
Yeah. Right. So, Total Recall. There are many, many theories as to whether or not this is all in Douglas's head or if it really happened. Uh, there's good clues to both. There's good things that suggest both, but I think there's more compelling evidence for one way over the other, and we will get to that at the end. So we're going to go through the movie, and at the end we'll give our thoughts on whether or not this was all in Doug's head or it really happened. Yeah, and we might have a difference of opinion on this. Yeah,
We shall see.
yeah, we didn't go into too much detail off air.
No.
So who is Douglas Quaid? So Douglas Quaid, the movie opens with him dreaming about being on Mars, and we see him there with Melina, or a woman who looks like Melina, and yeah, he wakes up, and we find out that he wants to move to Mars, and his wife Laurie is trying to put him off the idea. So we see Doug looking at the news and all these storylines about what's going on in Mars and stuff, and she changes it to, so they got these big screens on the walls that are like big windows, but they're like TV screens. A little precursor to what we get in the future with our big flat screen TVs. So she changes the image to a nice serene image. So we see that she just wants to keep Douglas all calm and relaxed and not thinking about Mars at all. And there's a lot of stuff with the characters in this movie where you could read it both ways and it would make sense. Do you get me? So like some of the looks and actions they do to start, excuse me, it could be we'll get into it as we go in more detail, but it could be if you think this is all like something that happened to Quaid and he is in fact Hauser, then it works that way. Or if you think it's all in his head, it could work that way too. And I heard Verhoeven talk about this where he said that they filmed it so that it would make sense both ways. What do you think of that idea? I thought that was a great way to do it. Although I still think there's more compelling evidence one way than the other, but
See, don't be confused with me because I'm easily confused. I just like a wee film that will give a beginning, a middle, and an end, and don't give me an Inception ending.
yeah,
Because or the Grey, you know that one with Liam Neeson.
right. I haven't seen it in a while.
No, I've never seen it, and I haven't seen it because I know what the ending is, and that's why we'll watch it.
Okay.
I like an ending, not to like things explained to me, but for me, this one is very straightforward. Even though you're going to go talk about another potential could be situation, but when you're talking from the film's point of view, it's the moment he's hooked up to the recall machine that it all changes, and you go, "Geez, that was a bit quick." So then the action really kicks in. So is he Quaid or is he Heiser? From that point on,
Yeah,
I can see what you're saying about when you get to that moment, you go, is this happening in his head or is this
yeah,
real life
yeah.
happening?
So we even
Is it
take,
stuff?
even if we take that
Stuff?
little bit with Laurie, where she changes the screen and she gives this look,
Mm.
that could be played, that could be interpreted both ways. It could be that, she just wants Quay to be happy here with her and all that, or she is actually working for the baddies, and she's trying to get all this Mars nonsense out of Quaid's head, or Hauser's head rather, if
But
he is in
then,
fact Hauser.
but then, how does an image of tranquility get it out of his head?
Well, for one, she's turning off the news he's watching, but also she's trying to keep him nice and relaxed and calm. I think it was very purposefully chosen.
Mm. Don't know about that because to me, if you're looking at if you're looking something in somebody's head that's buried and you can't find it, trigger things are what you need, not a picture of like a lake or a forest or something.
No, no, she's trying to make sure that, like, she's doing the opposite. Um she wants him to be, because if you read it in the way that she is just Quaid's wife, she wants him to just be nice and relaxed and happy with the life he has, rather than all this moving nonsense.
Hmm.
Not that she's trying to trigger him into being Hauser or anything like that. Do you get
I
me?
might go back and watch that, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's trying to, either way, she's trying to get the whole Mars stuff out of his head. And we get a line from Doug. He says he feels like he was meant to do more with his life. So, again, that could be interpreted both ways. He could be just that he finds his life monotonous and he feels like he wants to do more with it. Or he is Hauser and it's all in the back of his head that he is more of an important person.
But
So,
then, is that not what everybody thinks of themselves?
that they're meant for more.
Yeah, you're always meant for more. You go, "Ugh, not this freaking rat race again." That somehow you're always meant for more, but you're not really. It's just a sort of
Yeah,
a release mechanism for the daily chores of life, like we spoke of earlier, work,
yeah,
paying bills, stuff like that. So it could be an escapist thing as well.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, it could be read that way. And it works if you read it that way too. Um, and then we see Doug is on his way to work and he sees an ad for Recall, and he's like, "Ooh, this could be a nice way of getting to Mars without getting to Mars."
Actually, going, yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't you love something like that in real life, where you could just eliminate the hassle of real life and just have your ideal holiday?
No, because then you don't know what's real or not. I think that's the point of it all.
It would fuck with your
Um,
head for sure.
yeah, it's like planting false memories on your real memories, so you actually can't and if you do it often enough, surely you can't distinguish between what's real and what's fantasy,
Yeah.
and what's the consequences of that. If you want to be a super spy on Mars, what's to say something doesn't trigger you in your real life, and you start punching people and throwing them off ladders and stuff like that. So it's, do you know what I mean? It's sort of, I
Yeah.
don't think I've sort of touched on something like this on one of the stories I've sent you, left unsaid. There's a real danger in technology like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's integral to the plot of this because it kicks everything off. But now that you've suggested there might be another option, I'm sort of starting to think, could it be?
Mm.
Could the recall be what we think it is, or is it not what we think it is at all?
Yeah. Over the years, I flip flop back and forth between what I think with this movie, but I've recently, last time I watched it, I've kind of settled into a definitive answer for myself anyway. Um, but other people might interpret it differently. But it's a really enjoyable movie either way. Whatever way you think about it, it can work
Yeah,
well.
it's a good
Um,
movie.
his friend at work, so they're both working with their jackhammers, and his friend says, he tells his friend about Recall, and his friend, who very Danny DeVito like, um, tells him that someone he's heard of someone who went to recall and got his brains scrambled basically. So he's
Yeah.
warning Doug against it, saying that this is pretty dangerous shit. Do you want to really risk fucking being lobotomized or whatever? But even given that warning, Doug is so compelled to have his trip to Mars that he disregards the warning and goes anyway. So that shows just how much he wants this to happen. Um, and again, that could be him just wanting to live out a fantasy, or it could be that he is Hauser and it's in the back of his head that
Mm,
he needs to get to Mars. Like he subconsciously knows he should be there, sort of thing.
yeah.
So he goes anyway, and then we get that scene where your man from Recall, whose name is McLean, um, which is interesting because his name is McLean, and I heard someone told me that there's a prop in this movie that's also used in Die Hard, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Are they throwing nods? Uh,
John. Oh, yeah.
and yeah, so the salesman's giving him all this pitch basically and telling him his options of what they can provide. And one of the things he says is like, what's different about, or what's the same about every vacation? And he goes, you're always the same, so why not take a vacation from yourself? And he tells him he could be like a celebrity or a sports star or whatever. And then the last one is secret agent. And Doug jumps at the chance to be secret agent. As soon as it's mentioned, he chooses it without hesitation. And again, if you want to interpret it as this is Hauser who knows, subconsciously who he is or what he is, then that makes sense. Or if it's just this normal dude who feels like he's meant for more and, to do more with his life, he's like, I'd love to live out a fantasy as being a secret agent. So again, it works both ways. So your man lays. This is where we get one of the really big clues that this is possibly something that was all in Doug's head, because the man at Recall, he basically lays out the entire movie, the basic plot of the movie here, about you'll save Mars, you'll get the girl, all this kind of stuff. So what do you think about that?
I was all right about 20 minutes ago now. I was in the fact that I knew what Total Recall was all about. No, I don't. But but everybody wants to be James Bond at some point
Yes.
and be the hero. And let's face it, in his life, his real life, he's already waking up with a beautiful woman
Yeah.
because I had Sharon Stone's land there, and he's probably seen that other movie she was in where she did something quite naughty. I'd be quite excited. Um, but it's sort of like now I'm sort of thinking she, as the movie goes on, you think she's a plant or she's a plant. That she's not really his wife, but what man would ditch her in real life, if you know what I mean, for
Yeah.
the sake of a fantasy?
Well, it could be just that, like, she's a very beautiful woman and all this, but maybe he just finds his life really boring
Yeah.
and monotonous, and
Well, well,
maybe
well
apart from her looks, she's just not a very interesting person.
yeah, because Arnie was quite vocal at times. He says, I was naked in the bed when we were doing that scene. I go, Arnie, we don't really want to know that because the sheets stand out, you can see your bare arse. But uh, Billy, Billy Connolly did a bed scene with Sharon Stone, and they didn't get on at all. At all. And I
Right.
don't even, I can't even remember what the film was about, but he was on Parkinson with Tom Cruise, and he was telling the story. Of course, it's hilarious the way Billy does it.
Yeah.
But so maybe looks aren't everything.
Do you know what? I think that might be a valuable lesson for people to
Yeah.
learn.
Not that Arnold's any oil painting. Let's face it. Like, do you know what I mean?
You j-
At one point when I was rewatching this, at the very end, I he was kissing somebody. I went, I wonder what it's like to kiss Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not that I've any desire to do so, but I just thought he
oh,
doesn't even.
did you discover feelings that you didn't know you had during this movie?
No, not on this occasion. Not like when Dean Cain Superman pulled my hoodie open. Oh, but I just thought he's just. I don't know. It doesn't look like he'd be a bit passionate. It felt like he was like sucking a lollipop or something. Um,
Right.
I don't know. Just these, but this is part of the reason I think of these things because I got a bit bored on the rewatch.
No way.
Way,
This
way.
this was my most enjoyable watch of this movie because I was
No,
really trying to dissect it.
no. This wasn't my most enjoyable. 'Cause I just thought. See, you've got Owen's Blu-ray list. If you're on Owen's Blu-ray list, you're there for life.
Yeah.
Silver Bullet, The Blob, Predator, stuff like that, Aliens. But if you're not on Owen's Blu-ray list, it's sort of like you might get watched twice,
And then that's
and
it.
then that's probably it because there isn't anything more really. But it means it's a very good film. It's enjoyable. It's action packed, but I don't know. I don't know. It just didn't hold me this time
Right.
because I was so familiar with it.
Right. That can happen when you've seen something
Yeah.
enough times and you're familiar with it. You kind
Yeah.
of start watching it a bit passively. But this time around, I really, really enjoyed watching this movie. Right.
Mm.
So they're hooking Arnie up to the recall machine, and they're going through loads of options about like what he wants this what they can do from what do you want this vacation to be, and they say like, the more honest you are, the better time you'll have. So this is a really big clue, and it's only a little throwaway line, but one of the employees at recall hands another one a thing. I don't know if it's like a disc or a cartridge or something like that, and he looks at it and he goes, "Oh, blue sky on Mars. That's a new one." So that's a pretty substantial clue as to um, the fact that it was very likely all in his head from a certain point on. Um, what do you reckon about that?
Or it may not be.
Well,
It may be just coincidence.
you could put it all down to coincidence. It
It's
could very
coincidence
well be, but
because, as we know later on, there's certain things under the surface which people have speculated about for years. There's stuff under the surface of Mars. It's an old alien civilization used to be there, and now it's destroyed. Blah blah blah. Um, but I think there's something evocative, always evocative about the red planet. I
yeah,
don't particularly want to see a blue sky on the red planet because it
mm,
sort of spoils the mythos of it and the
yeah,
action and the intrigue, and sort of drives you um want to go there. But
yeah.
you'd have to get me there, like beam me there and beam me back, because I couldn't be sitting in no spaceship for weeks at a time. I coming out, I can't even do a bus. Never mind a freaking spaceship.
Knowing your luck,
Um,
you'd be beamed up, but a fly would be beamed with you, and we all know how
oh,
that
I
goes.
and then you have a new Martian species with one leg called the
Br-
Quinner,
Brundle Quinn.
the Grundle Quins. That would be my luck. But
So yeah, so I think that's, speaking of like coincidence and all that, if you consider that this is all part of the implant that they put into Doug's head, then
mm,
it can explain a lot of contrivances and coincidences that happen later on, as this is just part of the adventure that they implanted into his brain. So it's a good way to explain anything you might think, oh, that was a bit convenient, or all that kind of stuff. So when Quaid is in the machine, he starts freaking out, and he starts talking like a like a real paranoid dude. He's like, "Oh, they're coming for me," or something like that, or they're gonna find me, or something along those lines. And they're trying to get him under control, and they bring the your man who initially met Arnie. They bring him in, and he tries to. He's like, "What the fuck is happening?" And he says, "Oh, this is all part of the package or something like that." You know, and your one says it can't be because we haven't implanted it yet. So they say they haven't done anything to his head just yet.
but there's
Um,
something already. There's a package already planted in his head, wasn't it?
it depends
Wasn't
on what way you read it.
it? Yeah. Well, see, that does make sense.
So I didn't want to give away too much until the end, but like it's kind of hard not to. So I think that it was implanted already, and he's starting to play it out now. So I think this is all part of the implant from this point on.
See, I don't.
Well, that's
Although
interesting.
the movie jumps you to go that way to make you question
It
whether it
does.
actually is
It's
or
good
not.
at making you you like you think you're certain, and then they throw in a wrench, and then you're like, oh, is it? But
Yeah.
if like gun to my head, I had to pick, I would say, and like maybe if I rewatched it, 2 or 3 more times, I'd come to a different conclusion. But gun to my head, I would say that Doug went to recall. They implanted the fantasy he was looking for in his head, and then he plays it out from here on.
But then that undermines the entire logic behind recall because of if you keep going back for new adventures, it's like going on a cruise with different ships.
Yeah,
So if a package is already implanted, which is what we think is the Mars adventure,
yeah,
then why can't they implant one over that? I don't know, because you're going to go back at some point and get another adventure, another all different adventures.
yeah.
That's the whole purpose of recall. So why is it such uh, an issue for this one that it can't be implanted over an existing one that they didn't know was there? And what
because
actually?
because it wasn't
What,
there. That's the point.
but here's the thing: what triggers? Does recall actually trigger the memories
Well, see,
because they're trying to
that's one
implant it on?
interpretation.
So the human mind's going, "Oh, hold on, what are you doing, lads? I already know what's here. This is here already.
Yeah. So one
So go
interpretation
away."
is that this triggers all the Hauser and all that kind of stuff, and that he is actually an agent. What's the name of the bad guy? It's just called the agency, isn't that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So
I
one interpretation is he goes here and it kind of it activates him early, basically. And then
so really,
another
think
interpretation is that it is all just the fantasy they said they were going to implant, which I
so.
think there's more evidence for that, but there's good evidence for both.
Yeah, it's kind of Manchurian candidate territory.
Hmm. So he starts for
Only much more unclear, as I found out half an hour ago. Um,
so
well, it's
they can't get him under control and he's freaking out. So
yeah,
they come to the decision that they're going to try and wipe all his memory of ever coming to recall and put him in a Johnny cab. These Johnny cabs are fun.
Johnny
And
Cobb is played by
oh, I don't know.
Robert Picardo.
Oh, Savage! I didn't know that. That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
he's great. He's great.
He's awesome.
It's
He
great.
really is.
So yeah, so they put him in a cab and just dump him somewhere, and then um, the next time Arnie bumps into his friend he works with, um, well, it turns out his friend is just not a very good friend at all. He tries to kill him with a gang of thugs.
No, yeah.
So again, he's like his friend is saying that they're gonna kill him for blabbing about Mars, is what he tells him. And he said that his job. So it seems like if you're reading it in one interpretation, the wife and the friend were plants that were
Yeah.
trying to keep him subdued and out of trouble, and that going to recall put a spanner in the works. So his friend and these guys try and kill him, and then we get a really good action scene, and we see how violent the movie is going to be. It's not really going to pull its punches.
No. So they're there to keep his memories subdued so that he never, excuse me, remembers um, the secret of Mars.
Yeah. So if you go back to the chat with the friend at work, after the conversation, the friend gives this kind of look, and the look could be interpreted as like, oh, I don't want him going to recall because I don't want anything, fucking with his head and activating him early, or it could potentially be disastrous, or because he had just told him about someone being fucking getting their brain butchered, it could be just a look of concern from his friends, like I don't want my friend going there and getting his brain butchered. So
All right.
I think both interpretations work really well.
So he
Um,
was never meant to be reactivated.
well, he's meant
Is
to
that?
be reactive. Well, it happened prematurely is the problem if you're
Mm,
interpreting it one way.
yeah.
Um, And then Arnie has, yeah, he kills them all in a really violent action scene. And then he gets home to his wife, and then turns out she's also working for the baddies, if you interpret it one way. And then they get into a fight. Arnie takes a few groin shots, and then when the fight dies down, the wife explains to him that like she just works here, is what she says. That she's here to play his wife. That the job and all this was, organized by Cohagen, um, and that their relationship was an implant as well. So they haven't known each other for as long as he thought. That was just largely an implant. I think it was only like, was it something like only a couple of months they've actually known each other, but the implant made him think differently.
I wonder how long it would be before somebody uses that as an excuse to divorce.
This was all
So
an implant.
this is all an implant. I never knew you.
I mean, I don't know. It's a hard one to prove, isn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't on the Strawberry Daiquiris nightclub that night. No, no, I didn't go to Vegas. I wasn't married by Elvis. It was all a fantasy. Thanks very much. I'll have to burning at you home.
Never happened.
Never happened.
All right, so then we get Richter and his men show up. So we get Michael Ironside into the picture,
Woohoo!
who, as I said, is just a great villain. He's got such great screen presence, and his voice is just wonderful.
Yeah.
Um,
You can't. Michael Ironside is just awesome. I might have said that before, but he is, even in V when he's the anti-hero, you're rooting for him,
yeah,
and you want him to be bad for some strange reason. And if you think of him going up against the likes of Schwarzenegger, even the physical difference, but uh, he's more like a cobra going after a mongoose
mm,
sort of thing.
yeah,
He's gonna get defeated, but he's gonna go in for it anyway.
yeah, yeah. He's no fear.
No.
So when they show up, but Quaid has left. He knocks Laurie out and he leaves. She was trying to stall him until they got there. And we find out that they have put a tracking device inside of Quaid slash Hauser, whoever you want to interpret him as. And then we get that really really cool scene, the shot of the X-ray machine where they're going through that.
Mm.
That was a really cool effect at the time.
Yeah, it was full of great effects. Definitely
Yeah,
was.
I
Um,
think I believe it was one of the first movies to start using CGI. I think so. Obviously, it's got a lot of practical effects, but I think for that one, it was a mixture of CGI or animation or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it looks great.
um, like the woman's head, that's a physical
Oh
practical
yes,
effect.
yeah, we'll
So
get to that.
the first movie that used CGI was Young Sherlock Holmes.
No way.
Um, way. Um,
That's
it,
an interesting fact. I never knew that.
no, not I thought I know the first TV show to use it was Babylon 5 in season one, where they created the first CGI on-screen monster.
Oh, cool.
But the first movie was Young Sherlock Holmes, where the knight came out of one of them glass pane windows, with
Mm,
and the knight came out of the window to fight him.
mm.
So those were the start of it, and now look where we are.
Of all the films, I would not have guessed that.
No, I'd have thought some sci-fi or
Yeah, yeah,
even a horror to stretch, but never Sherlock Holmes.
yeah, or yeah, even a movie that's kind of more widely known, maybe like one of the.
Yeah.
But
Don't ask me who was in it because I actually can't remember. I can see his face. But no, I don't know.
yeah. So Quaid escapes again, and then a little bit after that, a man contacts Quaid. So Quaid's in this room. He looks out the window, and there's a man at a phone booth, and he fills Quaid in on the tracking device. He said they've put a tracking device in your head, and he tells him how to muffle the signal. He said put a wet towel around your head, and that'll muffle the signal. Your man leaves a briefcase at the phone booth for Arnie to go out and get. So he goes and gets the briefcase, and when you're one. There's a woman who shows up, and she grabs the suitcase as well, and they start tussling for it. And I think she says "fuck you, asshole." But I heard that was intentionally a nod to the first Terminator movie, where he selects a response and he goes "fuck you, asshole."
Oh, all right, no, so it does.
Yeah, I heard that was intentional. But anyway, Arnie, being the big fella he is, wins the tussle and gets the briefcase. And then we find out a little bit after that what was in the briefcase. So this guy said that uh, he sent him, like he as in Arnie, Arnie's alter ego, Hauser sent him that, like, you know, if you're ever reactivated, I'm here to help you out.
And I have to say, when I watched that sequence, Schwarzenegger for a lot of people couldn't really act until Kindergarten Cop, where he actually he emotes and stuff like that. But I think he actually does a good job here of differentiating the Hauser and the Quaid personalities.
I think so. I think they're both very distinct from one another.
Yeah, yeah, which isn't easy to do.
No, especially
Um,
because Hauser gets such little screen time. He doesn't have much
yeah,
kind of time to kind of work that in. But yeah, I think you're right. I think he does a really good job with it.
and Hauser comes across as not very likable.
No, he's a complete douchebag.
Yeah, I'd rather be called Quaid than Hauser anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
Quaid's a cool name.
mm, but yeah, the difference is well done.
In the book, I believe he's called Quail, from what I remember. I haven't read it in a while, and
I haven't read it ever.
I thought it was quite interesting. It's been a while. I'd have to recap it, but I remember it being really interesting. Right. So, and I think actually, I'm pretty sure in the book he wasn't a construction worker, and I think they changed that to explain Arnie's big physique.
Oh yeah, need to do something.
Yeah, because I think he. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I think he was like an office worker in the book.
Yeah, not
Um.
nothing.
So, yeah. So in the suitcase, there is money. There's fake IDs, a hologram device which will come into play later on, and a means to extract the tracker inside his skull, which will look pretty gnarly when we get to it. And then there's a screen in the briefcase as well, and Hauser, who is Quaid, um, he's talking to him, so he has this recording, and he said, he basically said, "You are me," and Hauser explains that he's been playing for the wrong team, and that he wants to kind of put everything right, basically. But it's kind of cut short. The baddies show up, and they're shooting at a rat because Arnie has put the tracking device in a rat. But
Mm.
the scene where he extracts the tracking device from his skull is pretty fucking cool looking, I think. I like a lot of effects in this, right? You know, okay, that's animatronic. This is that. This is
Yeah.
that. But it still looks great. It's still impressive.
I always look at him and go, "Oh, there's another Arnie head."
Yeah,
So, like in Terminator, you can see you knew it was a false head where he was like poking his eyes out and stuff like that.
yeah.
And that I just think, "Oh, here's another Arnie head."
Actually, that's one thing we forgot to mention at the start in his dream where he falls. They're on Mars and they fall and the helmet gets smashed and you get the big eyes bulging and oh my god. So I first seen this when I was quite young and I found that scene both hilarious and terrifying in equal measure.
All I can think of was Beetlejuice.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a story for when we get to that part.
Oh, you have a story. That's the first.
Stand by for another Quinn story, folks.
For which bit?
About Arnold and his eyes.
Okay.
Suffocating.
So he puts this to get the tracking device out of his skull. He puts this device up his nose and he starts struggling around with it. And the device, so it's like the size of a ping pong ball, basically. Yeah. And he pulls it out through his nose. And it looks pretty fucking cool, I think.
Oh, his nose must be a TARDIS because there's no freaking way in real life that wee ball was coming out that hole without doing some damage.
Yeah. And fair play to Arnie because there's lots of scenes in this that make him look, not exactly cool. I mean, he's got the towel wrapped around his head and he's pulling this big thing out of his nose and, he's not like the cool Terminator, but fair play.
He's getting well paid for it. I think he can suffer for his art.
I think he'll be fine.
I can be fine.
Yeah, so after he escapes from the bad guys again, we see that the message from Hauser's kind of on loop and he's saying, "Get your arse to Mars." And apparently there was they were going to film a longer sequence of him getting to Mars, but the budget meant that yeah, so they just kind of fade to him kind of there. And then we get a scene I absolutely love, which is the 2 weeks scene. I could never say 2 weeks or listen to someone say 2 weeks without thinking about this scene. It's so fucking cool. So Arnie is in disguise as a fairly large woman.
Yeah.
And then she's going through security and they're asking questions. And one of them is, oh, we also see a sign that says Kawato lives. So that will be important.
He will be very important, that little Quado.
Yeah.
Kind of like koala.
Koala lives.
I'm sure he does.
So they go, how long are you going to be on Mars? And she says 2 weeks. And then he asks another question and she goes 2 weeks. And she just keeps repeating 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And then Arnie starts clawing at the mouth and the thing's, obviously
Malfunction.
malfunctioning. And then he finally gets it off himself. And the way it opens up, it's just a really cool design choice. I think that's great. And then they see that it's Quaid and the bad guys are around, and Michael Ironside is like, "It's Quaid, get him!" Or before he takes the thing off, he's like, "That's Quaid, get him, her," and he just points. And then he throws the head, and the head explodes, so it's also a weapon. And then we get a scene where I think Arnie's traveling on a train or something, and someone explains to him that they found alien shit inside a pyramid. And we find out that Quado wants what's inside Quaid's head. So Quaid has something very important inside his head that Quado wants. And then we get Arnie gets this little safe deposit box. Is that what it was? And then there's a note inside saying, "Ask for Melina." And it's like it was a flyer for the that club to hang out at. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. So Arnie knows to go look for this Melina person, and then we see Benny the cab driver. And during the sequence, we find out that there's mutants on Mars, and some of them can dig into your head, and one of them offers to read your palm and all this kind of stuff. So the radiation has caused mutants to appear, and we get Benny the cab driver, who I think is great in this movie. I like him. I like him a lot. He's such a scumbag. It's like, I got 5 kids to take care of. And then
They're all born at the same time with the radiation. Was it Venusville?
Is it Venusville? I thought I had
Is
some.
it big now?
No, I'll have to look it up.
That's the name of the place.
We'll go.
The city under the dome is Venusville.
Right.
I don't see the name for the actual bar.
Yeah, I had it in my head and then it just went. I should have jotted it down. And then the fight with the rebels breaks out. So we see that there's conflict going on here. The rebels are pushing back. And then he escapes with Benny in the cab. There's a funny bit where a cab driver is giving Benny shit for stealing his fare. But we'll find out that there's more to Benny than first meets the eye. And then we get the meeting with Melina, and Quaid fills her in, and she obviously doesn't believe this story. She thinks it's bullshit, and she points a gun at him and gets him to leave. Because she doesn't believe what Quaid is. So she, herself and Hauser had a relationship, and she doesn't believe all this sequence of events that he explains that happened, because it's a bit outlandish. She thinks he's just being a prick. And then we get this scene. This is one people try and dig into a lot, because it's kind of important to kind of figuring out whether this is real or all in his head. So we get the scene where a guy shows up, and he says he works for Recall, and that they can't snap him out of his fantasy. So something's gone horribly wrong at Recall. So this guy is also, as he says, an implant. He's like a safety measure, and he wants. Apparently, the Matrix took inspiration from this because he basically tells Doug that in order to wake up safely in the real world, you have to take this little red pill, and apparently that's where the Matrix got that idea. But I'm not.
Because he's on the verge of permanent brain damage.
Yeah,
on the program.
Exactly. Yeah, he's in dangerous territory, and they need to try and wake him up safely. And the pill is a representation of his desire to wake up. And then they get Doug's wife shows up, so apparently, like, they've popped her into his head as well to try and help him see sense. So he hands Arnie the little pill, and he's like considering taking it, but he sees the bead of sweat rolling down your man's head, and then concludes that this is bullshit. It's just a trick. Now, another thing with this is that just before this, Cohagen said he had a plan to try and bring Quaid in because Cohagen wants him in alive, which he didn't really fill Richter in on a lot of this plan. So, you know, it kind of does make sense that his men are trying to kill him, but Cohagen wants him in alive, so he comes up with this plan.
Or,
yeah, that's
based on your logic,
yeah,
they were doing a stormtrooper impersonation deliberately missing in order to drive Quaid to go to Mars.
Well, you could have that, but then Cohagen and Richter have a conflict. They're like, you know, just fucking follow my orders.
Yeah.
Because we see that Richter wants him dead, but Cohagen wants him alive. So there's conflict there.
Which you sort of like need to tell people these things.
It's a bit of an important detail, especially what's at stake.
Yeah, because what if they actually killed him and they got the Mars? Where's your man? Where's Quaid?
Yeah.
He's dead. I didn't tell you to kill him.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me not to kill him.
Although there's that scene where he's communicating with him over a screen and he's trying to tell him, and your man pretends that, oh, it's breaking up and that he can't. So Richter was playing silly beggars there. So you can interpret this scene two ways. So it's either this is Cohagen's plan to trick him and bring him in alive, or this is actually your man who shows up is telling the truth, and that they're trying to get Quaid out safely because his mind's going to be scrambled. And then, as I said, Laurie shows up and she's like, Doug, honey, please, you need to listen. And so what way do you interpret this, Owen? Is this Cohagen's plan, or is it part of the fantasy?
No, it's part of it. It's this, for me, this is the bit where you decide it's real because of the speed of sweat.
Well, what does the bead of sweat mean? All right, so it could mean he's shitting.
Problem.
It could mean that Mars does look hot, but it could mean that.
Do they sell links on Mars, you think?
Say?
Do they sell links on Mars?
Oh, I don't know, but they should. Maybe that
they should.
Make
sweaty buggers.
That was Cohagen's original plan in the first draft. Get rich selling links on Mars.
Half Africa, everybody loves it. Thanks very much. Do you any cedarwood? No.
I currently use black vanilla. That's the spray I use at the moment, just if anyone's interested.
There you go. You go to Mars.
I do. So the bead of sweat could mean, and it seems to mean initially, that he's afraid that because Quaid says to him, all right, if you're all just in my head, then if I shoot you, it doesn't make any difference. And he goes, it won't make any difference to me, but it will unravel your mind, basically, is what he says. So the bead of sweat could mean that he is afraid that Quaid is going to call his bluff and shoot him and he'll die. Or he's afraid that this fella who went to Recall is about to have his brain scrambled, isn't going to listen, and they're going to, you know, end up lobotomizing him. So he could be nervous for Quaid. So it could be seen that way too. And then before he dies, he does say to Quaid, if you don't take it, the walls will come crashing down and all this kind of stuff. He says something else I can't remember. There's another thing he says which actually does happen, but one is that he says, "Oh, the walls will come crashing down and blah 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 blah," and then he does get shot in the head, and the walls literally do come crashing down as the baddies bash through the wall, and Arnie ends up getting captured, and then Laurie switches character, so she was like the loving wife, and now she's like back to Agent Laurie, and she like kicks him. I think she kicks him in the nuts again. He gets a few groin shots in this.
Fuck, he must have nuts the steel.
I'd be in bits. I'm like, I'm not getting up for the rest of the movie.
They'll be lying there.
And she goes, "Fuck you for making me come to Mars. You know how much I hate this planet." So yeah, considering all that, Owen, what way do you look at it? Do you think there's enough evidence to suggest that this is in his head and Recall are trying to bring him back?
No.
Okay.
No. Still think it's really happening.
Interesting. That's interesting. We'll throw in more evidence as we go. So yeah, he gets captured, and then we get that meeting with Cohagen, and what happens then?
Koala or Kwato?
Oh, not just yet. So Laurie and the men apprehend Quaid, and then Melina shows up. So another like, oh, this is very convenient, but is it convenient because it's all part of the adventure that they implanted in his head?
Or is it convenient because Melina loves him? And
it could be, but it's very convenient timing.
I went after him.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be a very short film if it wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then the fight scene with her and Laurie is pretty cool. I think I like a lot of the fight choreography in this, and they don't do it like just a silly kind of cat fight like a lot of movies do. Like they're actually using martial arts skills and stuff.
Yeah,
which I think is good.
Is it the fight between real love and fake love?
There you go.
Metaphorically,
could be a metaphor in there. Yeah, metaphors up in this bitch.
Or was it, "Come here, bitch, you took my man"?
Yeah. Because she was said, "That's Laurie, or that's your wife. What a bitch."
Yeah.
But just before Laurie meets her, or just as she meets her end, Arnie shoots her in the head. So I heard that initially it was supposed to go that Arnie says, "Consider this a divorce," and then shoots her. But they thought that was too brutal, and they didn't want Quaid to come across as too brutal. So they changed it that he shoots her just before she draws her gun on him. And then she's dead, and he goes, "Consider that a divorce."
Yeah. That would make more sense character-wise.
I think so. I think that was a smart change. And then, Melina says to him, "If Cohagen wants you dead, you might be okay." And then she says, "Quada wants to see you." And then they escape. And then there's that shootout in the bar where they're looking for Quaid. And the poor lady with the three breasts, she gets shot in the back by Michael Ironside because he's just that much of a bastard. How could he? She was Owen's favourite character. Say again?
Very easily, by the look of it.
Yeah, he's just got...
He doesn't care.
No mercy, no remorse. But Tony, the mutant from earlier, played by Dean Norris, shows him this secret room. So they got this secret room in the bar, and Tony says, Arnie goes, "Thank you, Tony," which I liked because he was a bit of a dickhead to Tony earlier, so I'm glad he kind of like at least gave him a thank you. He made fun of his face because Tony's a mutant, and I was like, that's not nice, Quaid.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's making fun of somebody's face? Seriously?
You're one ugly son of a bitch.
Told him you can buy. There's a sale on in Argos for mirrors right now. Go and buy a few.
Owen Quinn, that is so mean. Because it's not really Arnie; it's a character. You do know that, yeah?
Well, technically no, because he shouldn't be making fun of somebody with a disfigurement.
That is true. That's bad.
There you go.
So then we see that the
Yeah.
bad guys turn off the air. So we have a ticking clock now in the movie. They introduced this. So we found out a little earlier that people have to pay for the air.
Yeah.
Um, and then
Mm-hmm.
Cohagen, because he's all like fucking pissed off, turns off the air, and there's only so much time they're gonna have before they all suffocate. And then we get the meeting with Quato. We get to see Quato, and who is this fella, this mysterious fella that's been hinted at. Um, what is the guy who plays Quato, like the actor?
What, the voice actor?
No, no, the guy who Quato is on, who he's attached to. I can't
Why did
remember.
you him an hour ago? I can't remember.
In any case, we find out that Quato is a mutant. There'll be a picture of him on screen there. He's attached to this guy's stomach, so they're two separate beings. And Quato is quite a powerful psychic, and he wants to rummage around inside Quaid's head. And we find out that in the pyramid mines, Cohagen found something inside that scared him. So Quato holds hands with Quaid, sees inside his head, and sees all of this. And then he says to Quaid that a man is defined by his memories. Or sorry, a man is defined by his actions, not his memories. So if you're interpreting the film one way, then that's very important, because who's he going to choose to be, Quaid or Hauser?
Well, he just shot his wife, so he can't go back to being Hauser.
Um,
Or not his wife, his fake wife.
yeah,
So he's gonna go with Melina,
yeah,
who was never his wife. Oh, see, I'm confused now. See, we should have picked like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or
yeah.
something. Something very simple.
Pinocchio.
Okay, Marshall Bell played Quato, both the baby puppet and the person.
uh, I heard it took a lot of guys to operate that puppet. Like I heard it was madly complicated.
Yeah, it looks complicated, especially them days. But I mean, look at the thing, the movie, the John Carpenter one.
Yeah,
All the different things, even Jabba the Hutt. I think it was like 6 people had to operate Jabba. So something that looks, it had to be so animated and interact and look like a Baby Yoda thing
yeah,
with the "Let me feel the Force." Would have been a complicated thing, but it worked very well. It reminds me of Basket Case and
yeah.
those sort of thingies.
Do you know
But I'm
who
glad
Quato's head reminds me of a little bit? Is Chucky. He looks a bit like Chucky.
he's a bit freaky, like.
He
But I
is.
think X Files did something like that as well. There's been a
Right.
couple of horror films that've had that sort of same concept, but it was to do with twins or something.
Yeah.
No way one twin can absorb the other. But this is the this is this fits Total Recall perfectly because of Mars' location and the whole setup of the mutants that you've already seen.
Yeah.
Which, given the powers of Quato, it sort of implicates that maybe the radiation is turning him into something that used to live on Mars, maybe, or that sort of
Right.
meant that sort of thing. Because when you find out what's underneath the surface of the planet, that wasn't built by a race of Arnies.
Yeah.
That would be very intellectual, engineer geniuses, potentially super psychic
Right.
creatures.
Okay. Yeah. So Quato says a man is defined by his actions and not his memories. So that's an important line. And then we get an attack by those big badass looking drills.
I know. Come right through. There's the walls coming down again.
Yeah. There you go. And
Yeah.
then we find out that Benny is working for the bad guys.
Benny.
Yeah, we see that Benny. We find out that Benny's a mutant.
Bad Benny.
Yeah, and he kills Quo. So Benny was just working for Cohagen this whole time. He's like You know, he's got 5 kids to feed. um, and then Quato's dying words are to Quaid, start the reactor, free Mars, because the reactor makes air. So Mars will have free air if they start the reactor. And Cohagen doesn't want that because he's greedy.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
And he also tried to kill Robocop, which is
He did.
bastard.
Scumbag, and he almost took over the Enterprise, even though he turned out to be a good guy, bad guy sort of thing.
Right.
He, I don't understand. See, I wouldn't want to go to Mars because why would you go and live in a place where there's a dome, where there's no air outside, and you're reliant on machines to generate the air you breathe?
And you
So if
have to pay
something
for your
happened,
own air and all.
yeah, this is like, I bet you it was the same people that built open air stadiums in Ireland.
Right.
Now, as you know, Ireland isn't exactly renowned for tropical sunshine.
Hmm.
And who in their right mind ever put the Aviva Stadium or the other one with no roof is beyond me. Because I watched Robbie Williams in the pouring rain one night in Aviva,
Yeah.
and I've never went back. It
Right.
traumatized me for life. I've never went back to Aviva. I've never went back to see Robbie Williams. And if I'm going, I'm going to make sure the weather forecast is telling me it's like sunny 24 degrees
Yeah.
before I get there. I just don't understand that. I know it's irrelevant in the whole over thing of the film, but I just thought if we ever go to Mars and something because the planet's overcrowded, let's not go to a dome that could easily crack with one bullet
Yeah.
and you all suffocate and die.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
Yeah.
And if ever built these things, please take into account.
It doesn't look like a fun place to live.
No, it's not. By the look of it, because
No.
like you look at there's the cars and everything's there, so there's exhaust fumes. Like, you don't know what you're breathing in.
Yeah.
That's bringing that down to a really practical level, which most people go, we don't care because
Yeah.
it's really cool.
We
But
found
I
out
just
earlier
thought,
as well that you can go to Saturn. They offer Quaid a trip to Saturn, but he declines because he just doesn't think it looks as interesting as Mars.
no, you need terraforming. There's a clue.
um, yeah, and then we get a meeting with Cohagen, and it's explained that he needed Quaid to get to Quado because he said the psychics always snuffed them out. So this was so that if anyone could kind of dig into his head, they wouldn't um, suss who he really was, which again I think he says was a bit of a long shot considering what we see, but he even says himself later, he goes, I can't even believe it worked.
Mm.
um so that was their plan. So Quaid was Hauser and he was trying to get in with the basically trying to get to Quado was the goal. And they finally did. And Benny finishes him off. Um so all of this was all of this was orchestrated by Cohagen. Quaid's life and all that kind of stuff was all down to Cohagen and Hauser. Hauser volunteered to do this, and Hauser's good friends with Cohagen, so Cohagen wants him back alive if possible. But we will see that he changes his mind on that. And then we see there's less than an hour of air left. So what they do is they have Melina and Quaid and they're hooking them up to a machine. So they're going to bring Hauser back and they're going to program Melina to be his obedient wife. I find this fucking concept horrifying. The idea of someone strapping you to a machine and changing how you think and how you behave. Like, I think that concept is terrifying. What do you think?
I think it's the same as standing at the top of the altar and going, I do.
How is it the
No.
same?
Do you know what I mean? You just don't need
Oh,
the
and
machine.
you've hinted a few times you're not maybe that happy in your marriage.
But do you know what?
That's not.
I actually am. But I was watching something the other night
You
and I'm
better say
going,
that in case she's watching. If Owen's wife is watching, I
yeah,
believe you're a wonderful person and that Owen
yeah,
is just
she is a wonderful person. Do you know what? I'll tell you a wee story.
go for it.
There was tickets going for Wonder Woman
Ooh,
on a radio station to go and see the new movie, and I just rang and I rang them, and I actually got through and won the tickets.
deadly.
And he says, "What? Yeah." He says, what is it about your beloved?" I says, "Do you know what it is? She's Supergirl and Wonder Woman all rolled into one."
Oh, that's
So I made
lovely.
sure I told her. as I've just told somebody that you're Wonder Woman and Supergirl or Wonder Woman to get your coat to go to see Wonder Woman in the cinema.
Oh, that's lovely.
So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Happy after all.
So it's like the Borg assimilating you. It just takes a bit longer.
Yeah, so they try and Melina's like, Cohagen's saying you'll be his obedient wife, and she goes, I'll bust his balls, and she spits on him. Cohagen's an absolute scumbag.
Yeah.
And
But
Quaid,
Ronnie's really good at that.
oh, he's so good at that. He's so good at playing like the corporate douchebag.
But if you look at his performance I was thinking about this literally 5 minutes ago in Deliverance, the 70s with Burt Reynolds.
I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, and his ultimate fate. He's completely different now. He's an actor, but when you compare the Ronnie of the 80s compared to the Ronnie of the 70s, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day. And he's brilliant at everything he does.
Oh, he's great. He is such a great actor.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I heard that Michael Ironside was originally going to play RoboCop.
Never heard that one.
Yeah. I think there was something like he didn't want to wear that suit in that heat or something like that. But it all turned out for the best.
It did.
What happens then? Yeah, so we see Hauser on the screen. So Quaid doesn't believe Cohagen's story, so they showed him Hauser on the screen with Cohagen, and that's when Arnie finds out that it is true. He is Hauser, and Hauser wants his body back.
Well, if you're ever going to grab a body, you might as well grab that one.
There you go. And it's an interesting choice here for Quaid because we know Hauser's a powerful guy, and Quaid could return to that life. We know he has ambitions about being someone more important. But he decides he wants to be Quaid and he wants to help the people, and that's all interesting how that's set up. Because we know how much he wants to be an important person, but he declines in this case for the greater good, which is an awesome character moment.
But then he is an important person to these people that are about to die. He is
exactly
their savior, and he becomes what he wants. Without realizing it.
Yeah, he becomes what he wants by going the good path, which is great. Yeah. So before they can reprogram them, Hauser or Quaid breaks free, and the scene's also pretty violent and gruesome. He stabs a man in the neck with one of the things that had bound his arms. When I'd first watched this, I was like, could someone actually break out of those restraints? I think it's
convenient.
I think it's another kind of one of those, like, it's part of the fantasy. He's so big and strong, he can bust out these because he's like just a badass.
But then it also depends at what point in the script you need him to break out of one of their machines, because you've seen it so often before.
Yeah.
Where like, even ones where people are paralyzed in a chair, that Monkey Shines comes to mind.
Yeah.
And at the right time, he can move an arm.
Yeah.
Or the machine a dub, whatever that phrase is. So maybe it's that.
Yeah. In most movies, I would have liked that if he escaped by other means. But in this, I think it works if you consider that it's part of the implant and the fantasy. And I think the film's aware of that. But we don't know for sure.
No.
So then, Cohagen, he wanted Quaid alive, but then he reluctantly gives the order to kill Quaid because it's the best option at this point. And I like this bit where Cohagen, he kicks over a bowl of fish, and we see them flopping around, struggling and gasping, and then it cuts to the people gasping for air. I like that transition. It says a lot about the situation these people are in.
They are just fish in a bowl under the dome.
Yeah, to Cohagen, and Cohagen, considers, fish and people, it's all the fucking same.
What do you do with dead fish? Flush them down the toilet.
And the people are barely conscious at this point, so air is running out. And then we get Benny back in one of those big drill machines, which I think the design of them looked so fucking cool. Um, and then so he's about to drill into Arnie and Melina. They're up against the wall and they get a few cuts, but Arnie manages to maneuver around the side, and he uses a little smaller drill he has in his hand to drill into the machine and kill Benny. And we get an Arnie pun. He goes, "Screw you." And that's the end of Benny. Were you sad to see Benny go?
No, two-faced fucker.
It turns out he does not have 5 kids. It was a lie after all. Um, the effect when Benny's revealing his hand, showing that he's a mutant, that looks really good. I think that looks so
Mm.
cool, and the
Oh,
design of it,
it is. Yeah, the mutant designs are very, very good on this.
yeah. Um, and then they're getting to the reactor, and that's when the hologram device comes back into play, which is really cool. Um, it would have been. I wouldn't have liked this at all if it wasn't set up earlier, Joe. Because I hate when people just pull stuff out of
Mm.
nowhere. But they set up that Arnie has this on him, and it finally comes back into play. Um, so the baddies have the drop on him, and they start shooting about a fucking 100 rounds. Now the only thing about the way this scene is shot is that when you're looking at it, you're like, some of those guys should have been hit by the crossfire,
Mm.
but they aren't. So it's just, I would say, a little error, but nothing.
It,
Go on.
it's the A-Team effect.
Right, what's that?
Only one. Remember the A-Team, Mr. T and
Yeah, yeah.
Hannibal, all lemons. So in 4 series, only one person actually died
Is that
from
true?
a bullet wound. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it was one of the generals. But they could walk into an entire tornado of bullets and nobody ever get killed. But the
Yeah.
fire a couple of cabbages and bring down a whole gang. So, and they even had Boy George and Culture Club one at the fighting alongside him at one point.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
So we're talking about the Stormtrooper and the A-Team effect. It's sort of like, you wonder sort of, can they even? I know there's been like a lot of violence and stuff, but at this point they're going, let's just get it over. I think.
Yeah. Um but yeah, so they're shooting at the hologram, and then the real Quaid shows up and starts shooting at them, and he kills a bunch of guys. And then later they get the drop on Quaid again, and oh yeah, so I think he says before then, "Oh, you think this is the real Quaid?" And then the real Quaid shows up and shoots him. And then later they get the drop on him again, and it is actually a real Quaid, but he starts laughing like he's the hologram again. You think this is the real Quaid? And he goes, "It is," and he shoots them. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty clever. And Melina uses the hologram device in this as well, which was a nice touch. And it's good to see them working together to defeat the bad guys.
Mm.
Melina's far from helpless. She's very useful throughout this movie. Um, and then finally we get a showdown between Richter and Arnie. Owen, do you want to talk us through this? Arnie,
Well,
Arnie and Richter are fighting each other. Finally.
Arnie, it is a good wee fight, but poor Richter, when he gets sort of, he sees the lift coming literally,
Yeah.
and then he gets cut. I actually had to watch that twice. Was he cut off at the chest?
No, no,
Was he cut off the head?
no, no.
Or
You
he fell
see,
in
when he's fallen, it's just his arms are gone.
That's what it was. Because I just thought, good, you deserve it for all the nasty things that you done.
You could say Arnie
Uh,
disarmed him.
Disarmed him literally.
Yeah.
Because I was going, what happened there? Because I thought if he cut him in half, why is he screaming on the way down? He should be like dead. But then I seen the Arnie holding the two arms.
Yeah.
Um, but a fitting end to that villain, a particularly nasty and painful ending, which is well deserved.
Yeah.
We love you, Michael. Really, just saying,
We
such a
do.
character was
He's
a
so
fucker.
he's so talented. He can make you hate him.
Yeah, and love him at the same time.
Yeah. And Arnie throws the arms down because earlier Richter had punched Arnie before he's getting his memories kind of back, and I think when the baddies are leaving, they say, "See you at the party" or something. And then after this fight scene, Arnie has your man's detached arms and he throws them down. He goes, "See you at the party, Richter."
Yeah,
It's so cool. And it's good that the fight scene isn't too long, and I think that's a
No.
good choice because it's too hard to believe that Richter would put up so much of a fight with Quaid. He's too big, too strong.
Mm,
As we know from training martial arts, size matters. Isn't that right?
sorry.
So that's Richter out of the picture, and I was sad to see him go.
I didn't even wave goodbye.
No. Uh, and then we get an encounter between Quaid and Cohagen. So Arnie is just, inches away from starting this reactor. But Cohagen shows up with a gun, and he says, "I'm gonna blow this place and be back in." He goes, "I'm gonna blow this place and be back in time for cornflakes." That always made me
Yeah,
giggle.
when he said cornflakes, I went, "They still have cornflakes in the future." Awesome. I wanted to do Rice Krispies and Sugar Puffs.
I tell you, he's all about cornflakes and links.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that boy is the market cornered.
But yeah, it's funny to imagine cornflakes in the future on Mars. Like
Yeah,
it's
he's
still
right.
going.
It takes you out of it a wee minute and goes, cornflakes? Really?
It does a
That's
bit.
awesome.
Yeah. And he says he wanted Hauser back. Because he said like Quaid is just not a real person. He said you're a dream, and all dreams must come to an end. And then Melina comes in to save the day. We get this explosion, and they're being sucked outside. But Quaid manages to set off the reactor just before being sucked outside, and then that starts to create the air, so that the people who are suffocating are saved by Quaid activating this reactor. And we get the scene. You had a story about this. So they're outside on Mars, and
Yeah.
their eyes are bulging, and it looks
Firstly, I'm going to
really
say,
funny and horrific at the same time.
firstly, I'm going to say it looks so false and fake. Secondly, I'm going to say, see the hand on the machine that activates it?
Yeah.
It put me in mind of the Star Trek Vulcan salute, which I cannot do for love and money. If you look at it, it's obviously a
Oh,
different shaped
I
hand of
can,
a
I can
human.
do the Vulcan salute.
No, there's only one salute I do. Usually get shouted at for it.
All right.
Flip the bird. Or the two-fingered version, away you go.
Flip the
So,
bird.
flip the bird. See, I'm watching this, right? And the
Right.
reactor's been off, and the glass is exploding, and the volcano comes out with the air and stuff. And nobody gets cut by the glass or killed by falling big chunks of glass, which is amazing. But
That's because
I
it's
just
all
thought,
part of the adventure, Owen.
I know, but who says maybe it's not real glass?
Oh.
But I just thought, fucking Ronnie's taking a long time to die, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
I thought, Jesus Christ, well, I'd like to send him for a midwife if he's taking that long. And then when Arnie and Melina get pulled out, they start doing the eyeball thing too, which looked like something out of, as I said, Basket Case or Beetlejuice or something like that.
Mm.
And then I decided, you know what, for the podcast, I'm just going to look up a wee fact. So I decided to Google, how long would it take for you to suffocate in a vacuum or a void?
Yeah.
Right? So I took a screenshot. I'm going to send it to you afterwards to prove I'm telling the truth.
Okay.
You know what came up? Do you know what
What?
came up when I Googled that? Help available, the Samaritans 24-hour helpline.
Oh my god.
What? And no matter how often I do that and Google it or change it from vacuum to void or whatever,
Yeah.
it only brings you up helplines
Yeah,
for
but
people with mental health.
that's a
I
very
went, no, it's total recall. I'm not, no, you don't worry. I'm not looking for a void. I don't even know where you would find a void or a vacuum.
yeah, but it's not a
Um,
very good thing that comes up.
it is a very good thing, but I just
Yeah.
thought, if,
Yeah. You're
if,
like,
there,
yeah.
if anybody comes to my door tonight and say, "Excuse me, sir, were you looking up how to long it takes you to suffocate the vacuum?" So I swear to God, it's for a podcast. I swear.
And then they take all the hoovers out of your house.
And then my Hoovers go on the floors get dirty, and then mother of Jesus. So I
That,
swear to God, I'm gonna send it to you afterwards, and I just took a fit of laughing.
oh my god.
Um,
That's the danger of being a writer. Like all your
Isn't
Google
that?
history looks very suspect.
Yeah, no, you look Google all these weird things. Like one of them the other day was, when was red velvet cake invented? That
Ooh.
was first story. But there you go. But
When,
yeah, I
when
just
was it
thought,
invented out of interest?
oh, I can't remember. I just put it in the story. I just
Right.
copied it. Oh, so about 18 something, I think.
Yeah. So
What?
yeah, their eyes are all bulging out, and the air comes back, and everyone is saved. And then Melina goes, and then that's when we see the blue sky on Mars,
The blue sky on
and
Mars.
everything your guy at recall came true. Everything he said would happen happened, and we get the blue sky on Mars. And Melina goes, "It's like a dream," and then Quaid says, "I just had a horrible thought. Like, what if it is all a dream?" And then she says, "Kiss me before you wake up." And then we get another clue. What's the clue? I think this is a big clue.
I'll say I must have missed it because that was the point I went. I wonder what it's like to kiss Arnie because he's just like putting his. He's not like doing away. He's just like putting it on as if he's like putting it on the mirror. No one you do that in the mirror.
Yeah, please never make that noise again. But yeah, I get
Well,
you.
I'm copyrighting that noise. So I
That'll be your new
sort of
ring. That'll be your new ringtone.
mini ringtone. So I've no idea what the clue was because at that point I have to say I was sort of like, thank Jesus that's over.
Ah, no, I was like, that was fucking awesome, and I was delighted to watch it again.
No, it's very, but it's good, but it's like it's got a finite life for me, attention span wise.
I think there's multiple watch throughs is warranted with this because you pick up on little details here and there, and it's one of the reasons I flip flop back and forth over the years about whether it's all real or in his head because you pick up on different details. And
What's
but
the final clue again?
the final clue I think is that we fade to white and not fade to black. And we get a little musical clue. So there's a little piece of music that plays when Arnie shows up at recall, and it plays again here. So I think that it's Arnie waking up from his fantasy.
What's the tune?
Do you want me to hum it?
All right, go on. If I can make a noise, you can make a noise. Where you go?
Oh, it's a bit of music. It's a bit different.
Right,
It's
what's the
like.
music? What's the wee tune?
Do you know what? I'll send it to you. I'll send you the two.
A little,
A little.
a little.
Although I do
Was it
love
on the-
the recall little jingle where it's like, for the holiday of a lifetime, recall, recall, recall. That's the extent.
High on a hill that a lonely goat turd yodel.
So I think the fade into white and the little musical jingle is a big clue that this is Arnie waking up from his fantasy and getting lobotomized.
Well, see, if I was doing this in these days, I'd have put on a post. I did a Marvel and done a post credit sequence of just a close up of Arnie's face, and you don't see anywhere he is or what he's doing, and his eyes just flipping open, and then getting the film there. That's
Right.
what I'd have done.
Right.
That's my Inceptionist version.
So has any of that changed your mind on whether or not this was real or in his head?
Not in the slightest.
Tisk, you're so
No.
stubborn.
No.
All right, so
real.
for you,
it has to be real.
for you, what's the most compelling piece of evidence that it's all real?
The sweat.
Right.
And the fact you wouldn't go through something like that if it wasn't because it was for the greater good of everybody.
What do you mean? Explain that.
To save the population of Mars from being suffocated by wee Ronnie.
Right.
And you wouldn't shoot like a mutant baby on screen either. That's like going a step beyond. And that poor woman with the 3 boobies. No, that's too complex and interesting a world for it to be a dream world. Especially with Sharon Stone getting a bullet.
I think they draw a lot
Richard
from your
getting
own
the bullet.
subconscious, but I believe with the technology Recall has, they can, they're equipped to build a world like this and make it believable.
Or you could put out another post-credit sequence of Arnie back outside the Recall building and blowing it up.
Why?
Because it's a dangerous thing.
Right. But if you're going by that interpretation, he was lobotomized.
No, it means it was real. So he went back and blew it up before it did that to anybody else.
What are you talking about?
Because thanks to Recall, he got his real memories back.
Yeah.
So that got him away to Mars. But
if that's the case, They didn't implant anything, and it just activated him. So that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but they shouldn't be putting. That's not a good thing. Do you know what it's like? Do you know these apps these days where have photos of your dead relatives sing and dance? No, 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 no.
Yeah,
That's too far, too
yeah.
far. So that's what we call
I
it. It's one
I
of them apps.
I think this is a story about a man who got to live out a fantasy of being something more, which is what he desired before being lobotomized. And he was so desperate for this fantasy, he was willing to take these risks. But that's just my interpretation. Everyone's going to be different, which is great. I
What
do.
did Paul Borehaven, or what did we call him, say? Did he ever say?
He said that they just filmed it in such a way that you could interpret it as both. And he said that they, when they were making it, didn't give themselves a definitive answer. You know what I mean? They just put uh, suggestions in for one way or the other. But as I said, I think for me personally, there's more compelling evidence that at a certain point, it's all the recall fantasy. You got Blue Sky on Mars. You got the guy explaining how the film's going to go. You got some conveniences here or there, which I think are supposed to be purposefully like action movie type scenarios and outcomes because it's all part of the adventure. Fade in the White, I think, is a big one. I think like that's a very interesting choice to do that. If it's not in his head, you know.
Mm,
Um,
possible. It's like the ending of the thing.
but the great thing about this, you can enjoy it either way. Either interpretation can work, and you can enjoy it either way. And I'm always interested to hear which way people go and why. So drop that in the comments if you want to explain what your own interpretation. So it's
Yeah.
one of those movies where like you don't need a definitive answer to be able to enjoy it. Some movies you're like, oh, if I can't work this out, then I just don't get it and I can't enjoy it. This isn't one of those. Um,
Apart from how they got away with doing them terrible eyeballs and choking faces.
hmm. So would you recommend Total Recall to someone, a science fiction fan, possibly?
Who's never seen it? Yeah.
I absolutely
But
would. Yeah.
you probably watch it once or twice, but that would be it. It wouldn't be one I would go back to, but there's lots of sort of iconic moments and iconic characters in there
Yeah.
that you have to see.
It was groundbreaking in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you have to see it. It
Uh,
may be also be the first movie Arnie dressed up as a woman,
but not the last.
but not the last. And then he get pregnant. But that's
He's
another
done it
story.
all. He's done it all, this
He
fella.
has.
He was even a robot from the future. I mean, that takes some acting
Yeah.
chops.
What film was that again? That one? I
Was
can't
that
remember.
Junior? Was that Twins?
Uh,
No.
not like Kindergarten Robot. No,
Kinder- Kindergarten Terminator.
twins. Twin Roby.
So
Cosmic City.
I like Total Recall quite a bit. I think it warrants a few watch throughs for sure, and it's one I will always kind of go back to every now and then. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I was excited to cover it. And yeah, my interpretation is it was Douglas Quaid who wanted to experience being a very important man, and he got to live that out. But Owen, you feel like he was Hauser, and this was all real, and that's cool. That's and
Yeah, because I have a sore head now. I need a paracetamol because I'm really confused now. So I want to go with the easy answer. No,
we
I always thought it was real.
yeah.
Yeah,
So so what do you think about the guy who laid it all out at recall, saying this will happen, and you'll get the girl, you'll defeat the baddie.
he was a Jedi mystic. Um,
That's one
he
interpretation I have not heard, so
yeah,
that's at least unique.
he was like feel the force. How's our feel the force? Get the blue sky. And then he used the Star Trek Vulcan hand movement to save the planet. So yeah, it
All
was a
right.
Jedi mystic, and with the crossover from Star Trek.
John, it's a unique interpretation. I'll give you that.
It is, and you probably never hear it anywhere else.
There you go. You get
But that's what
Owens
makes this podcast special, because
exactly.
we see things completely differently to other people.
Yeah, yeah. So Owen, where can people find you in your work? What are you working on at the moment?
Well, I'm about to start. Well, I partly started a new story called The Wasting.
Yeah.
And then I have another one to do called The Secret of the Ape Canyon and another one called Magic Box. And they're all going to be part of the anthology When Angels Burn, and other stories.
Yeah.
Uh, Doing a couple of articles for the website to get myself ahead for 2026. And I'd say that just firing away at what I've got. Really, I've a couple of new ideas for other projects. So it's just getting the time
Mm.
to do it. But that's Owen Quinn, The Time Warriors and Beyond, www.thetimewarriors.co.uk. Irish author and The Time Warriors author, all on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to checking out that thing you sent me. I'm excited to check out some
Um,
Owen Quinn.
well, I'm shaking, so I'm used to his crap.
Well, it's an opportunity to grow. I'm currently reading back over my stuff to make sure it's all good, good to go. No flaws, no mistakes. No,
It's a pain in the frickin' arse, is what it is.
isn't it just?
I was drained. And I just, the fact I got no sleep last night, not because it was insomniac, because my brain was buzzing that much from editing. It's such a tedious process, folks.
It is.
And you become word blind, don't you?
You do absolutely. Like
Yeah.
when you're in that state of mind, you just as you said, you become word blind.
Mm.
And then your own story starts to feel boring because you're just fucking sick of it at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, oh, God, is this? That's why I was like, Jesus, is this going to be really boring to people?
Yeah, and you're just dying to move on to your next idea.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram at Stephen Carey Stories, and if you want to check out my work, there will be a link in the description, and there'll be a link to Owen's website in the description. So, if you
Woohoo.
enjoyed this discussion on the great Total Recall, give a like and don't forget to subscribe and all that business.
Yep.
And we'll be back again soon with something fun. All right, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.